Who is the biggest breakout candidate for the Dallas Stars next season? Jason Robertson continues to skate, along with more updates from practice and how the Stars reinvented themselves to what we see now. That's next on Locked On Stars.
You're Locked On Stars, your daily podcast on the Dallas Stars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Howdy, Stars fans. I'm Joey Erickson, former producer of 105 Through the Fan. Please be sure to subscribe. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. And as always, thank you so much for making us a part of your day and making us your first listen. Happy October, Stars fans. Yes, October is here, and we are just 9 days away. 9 days away from the Dallas Stars season opener against the Nashville Predators. I'm fired up. You should be fired up. Meaningful hockey games are here. One more preseason game on Thursday against the Blues, and then we are ready to rock and roll. So that's why we're going to take a look at the biggest breakout candidates for the Dallas Stars. And why is it Mavrik Bourque? You could throw Logan Stankoven into the conversation as well. I want to hear your potential breakout candidates as well. So drop them in the comments below if it's not Mavrik Bourque or even Logan Stankoven. Jason Robertson continues to skate. We have some more updates from practice today and an article that I glossed over the summer about how the Stars and general manager Jim Nils sort of reinvented the Dallas Stars, and we're now reaping the benefits of that now, along with all the young talent the Stars have acquired. So plenty to get into on a Tuesday episode of Locked On Stars, which is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. The Athletic put out an article with each NHL's team's biggest possible breakout candidate for the 24-25 season. So, of course, I have to highlight the Dallas Stars. And this was written by Mark Lazarus. He says, Mavrik Bourque. 2 years ago, it was Wyatt Johnston who burst onto the scene as a 19-year-old. Last year, it was Logan Stankoven at age 21 and Thomas Harley at 22. Now it's Bourque's turn. The reigning AHL scoring champ, 26 goals and 51 assists, only played 2 games with the Stars last season and 1 regular season game. Early in camp, he's finding himself centering Jamie Benn and Stankoven, a tantalizing mix of youth, scoring, and savvy. No franchise has put young players in a better position to succeed than the Stars, and Bourque will be the latest to take advantage. And it absolutely feels like this is Mavrik's breakout season. This is going to be the year for Mavrik Bourque. And I do want to point back to the conversation I had with Stephen Meserve of 100 Degree Hockey last Friday. And he spoke about how Mavrik Bourque wasn't really your likely AHL MVP type of candidate. You usually don't see that from a player like Mavrik Bourque. It's more like Travis Moan, who we mentioned, who won the AHL MVP a few seasons ago with the Texas Stars. Some of your more journeyman, veteran players that haven't quite broken into the NHL but are very good AHL players. And Mavrik Bourque is not going to be that. He can be easily a top 6 player in the National Hockey League, at least from what we've seen up to this point and what we've seen from him in the preseason. He's so savvy. And he also touched on Mavrik is a playmaker. Stankoven was more of your finisher type, and Bourque being paired with a player like Stankoven and Jamie Benn, who's sort of the dad of that trio, if you will, protecting the 2 young kids. Bourque is going to thrive and can just do what he does best. And that's be really responsible in his own end. He's good on the dots. And he can make plays for Stankoven and Benn, who at this point in his career, Jamie Benn is more of a finisher around the net. That little 4-foot radius around the crease. He's not ripping wrist shots home from the tops of the circle like he used to, even though I think he still has it in him, and he can. But he does a lot of his finishing right on top of the goal crease and netminder, just being a body, taking the eyes away. And Stankoven, you just have to let him take over. He can go get pucks for you. He can jump on loose pucks, and he can get it to Bourque, and then Bourque just needs to set him up because Stankoven's going to be there. They already have that chemistry. It's all lining up for a really big Mavrik Bourque season, and I can't wait to watch it. I think you can throw Logan Stankoven into this conversation as well. You have to at 21 years of age. I know he technically already broke out, but in terms of production, and that's usually what this comes with. Your biggest breakout candidate is a player that scores above expectations. And that was Thomas Harley last season and Wyatt Johnston for the most part. I know Wyatt broke on to the scene a couple of years ago, but he scored 30 plus goals this past season. That's a breakout year. And Thomas Harley finished with, 47 points. That was a breakout season, double digits in goals. He really took his game to the next level. Bourque already has the game. He just didn't have a spot to fill for Dallas last season. But with Joe Pavelski departing, Fox is out of the picture now, along with Dellandrea. Bourque is sort of being ushered into this role, being gifted it to some degree, as Ryan Chambers mentioned a few weeks ago as well. He's kind of just being put into this position, a great one. And Jim Nill would never put his players in a position where he thinks they cannot succeed. And Pete DeBoer subscribes to that as well. We're going to touch on that a bit later on how the Stars reinvented themselves. So that's a bit of a tease. He is very patient with his young players. And Bourque played a couple of seasons now with Texas and Cedar Park, and he lit it up. And he's going to have an opportunity to really burst onto the scene. And if he does that, the Stars have hit on another late first-round draft pick. Stankoven is going to be right there. He'll be battling for a Calder Trophy, you would suspect, at least from what we saw last season. It just seems like his production and his skill set and his work ethic are going to keep him in those conversations for the majority of the season. And even when his offense sort of dried up in the postseason, he had 14 points in 24 games, so he's still classified as a rookie. You have to think he's going to be sniffing around 25 goals next season, and maybe that's a bit bullish, but he's going to get some more power play time. He'll probably be on the second unit. Who knows? He may get the opportunity to jump up on the first if things aren't going properly. If Pete DeBoer wants to change up personnel, he could play 20 minutes a night, and he'll get the opportunity to play alongside Ben and Bourque, who he already has chemistry with. You think the production is sort of going to come naturally. We'll see what the difference is with Wyatt Johnston, who we think is going to slide in on that top line with Rope and Robo. How does that affect things? Is Wyatt really the juice that made that trio go? I'm not saying he wasn't impactful, but with what we know from Logan Stankoven and his motor and his forechecking ability, I don't think they're going to have any issues, and they're not going to necessarily miss Wyatt Johnston on that line. But still, when Wyatt Johnston can finish like he does, that is something that you're certainly going to have to work around. But I think Stankoven is going to shoot the puck tons. He's going to be lights out, and he's gonna have so many opportunities to score goals because he's going to get so much time and space because of players like Bourque and Ben who are savvy. Ben understands what he needs to do, where he needs to be, and I think it allows Bourque and Stankoven to just be who they are, and they don't have to be thrusted in a role that is asking more out of them than they are capable at this point in their careers. And that's the beauty about this Stars roster at this point in time, which you cannot say for a decade plus. You can put players in a position where they're not asked to do more than they're capable of at this point. Because you still have Matt Duchene, 65 points last season. Todonov's a good veteran piece still. We all know what we're going to get out of Rope and Robertson. Bourque and Stankoven don't have to be overwhelmed feeling like they have to carry the offensive load, because that's not their responsibility. They still need to produce, of course, and they're going to be a big part of the offense, don't get me wrong, but they're not asked to shoulder the majority of that. Robertson has to shoulder some of that load. And Rope, players that are in their prime of their careers and have been around the block the last few seasons, they have to shoulder a bit more of that than Bourque and Stankoven, who, yes, are technically your top six, but they can just be who they are. And it's going to be an absolute blast to watch these two together. It's going to be an absolute blast. Bourque and Stankoven, and those are really your two breakout candidates. It feels like they are just the easy answer, and maybe it's a cop-out. But I'm curious, is there another breakout candidate you're thinking about? Drop it in the comments below. I think Bischel should certainly be a part of that as well. I mean, who knows? He could come up in December. He is still on the roster to this point in time ahead of the final preseason game. I don't quite know if they're going to be able to have him on the opening night roster due to cap concerns, but he's a guy that could come up in November possibly if the Stars have injuries, if they just need some help on the back end. Bischel's a guy that could come up, and next thing you know, he plays 40-something games, maybe 50, and you're like, all right, he has arrived in the NHL. So he's another guy you can kind of throw into the hat. I just don't know how many NHL games he's going to get this season, if any. We still don't know. He looks to be the part to some degree. But as I said earlier, the Stars are very cautious and are not in any rush to get their young players up to the NHL. And at this point, they don't need to be. They have plenty of bodies and plenty of capable talent to get the job done. But it is exciting when you have a young player knocking on the door. And that's what Bischel has to do. Just continue to knock on the door and force the front office and Pete DeBoer to have to make a tough decision. But that's the Dallas Stars' biggest breakout candidate for the 2024-25 season. Just to go over some other teams in the Central Division, you can look at Colorado, Justice Onunen, a 24-year-old. He'll get a bigger workload. Lucas Reichel for the Chicago Blackhawks in the Central Division. We can take a look at some other teams as well. Maybe some names you've already heard. Marco Rossi for the Wild. He sort of had his breakout year, or at least established himself as a player that is going to be an everyday NHL player. But what are we going to see out of him this year when he is going to be thrusted into a bit bigger of a role? I'll be able to talk with Seth over at Locked On Wild later this week, so be on the lookout for that. I'm going to ask him about Rossi and maybe his game going to the next level for a big year for Minnesota, who missed out on the postseason. So a lot of fun stuff on the horizon with Locked On Stars, including an episode with Uri Kralik here towards the end of the week. May not be able to put that out until next week, but getting some guests on, and we're going to have a ton of fun as we prepare for a new season of Dallas Stars hockey 9 days away from the season opener in Nashville. Speaking of that, Jason Robertson should be ready to go for the season opener. He continues to skate and participate in practice, and we have some more updates I'll share with you in just a moment. Today's episode of Locked On Stars is brought to you by FanDuel. Hey, NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get the hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. Get in on the action with FanDuel this football season, enjoying every game on a Sunday, Monday, and Thursday even. Get in with FanDuel. $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. All you have to do is place your first $5 bet. So go to FanDuel.com. That's FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So Jason Robertson continues to skate, which is a good sign for the Stars forward. They are still predicting a return on opening night against Nashville. That is the timeline currently. We'll see if he gets into a preseason game. The last one, of course, on Thursday against St. Louis. More than likely, we're not going to see him. They just want to be extra cautious with Robertson. He's still on pace for the season opener, which is a great sign. And yeah, him missing camp, or not really camp, missing preseason games should not be much of a worry. Robertson is going to be just fine. Mavrik Bourque was a full practice player. He had an undisclosed injury a couple of days ago, but he is fine, and he was out practicing as well. Mason Marchment, who blocked that shot in, I want to say, preseason game number 1, he had another maintenance day, and Wyatt Johnston was not on the ice. That was a maintenance day, according to assistant coach Steve Spott. So some of the lines that were out there, we saw Robertson / Dodonov, Hintz, and Hero, because Johnston was out. Ben Bourque, Stankoven, no surprise. Steele, Duchesne, Sagan, no surprise. And then Blumel back in Blackwell, Pedersen, Hughes, and Lynn to round out your 15 forwards. So there was a total of 5 lines there. All the defensemen were practicing. Heiskanen and Dumba. That seems to be the top pairing for the Dallas Stars heading into night 1. Harley was with Capobianco, Lindell and Lyubushkin, Smith, Lundqvist, and Bichel and Petrovic. Bichel and Petrovic may be one of the top 4 pairings for Texas down in Cedar Park. Probably don't make too much about Harley and Capobianco. I just think that's a placeholder at this point. But who knows? Capobianco has played in the NHL. He has some games under his belt. But I don't think that will necessarily be a pairing on opening night. I think you're going to see Harley and Lyubushkin, and then it will probably be Lindell in Lundqvist. But we'll see how it continues to be fluid and change throughout the next week or so, and we'll have a better idea of who the Stars are going to deploy on opening night. But Blumel and Back are still into the mix. I know I talked about this yesterday on yesterday's episode. Arttu Hero continues to impress. I think he probably has a slight advantage to sneak in there as the 13th forward. But Back, who is a really good penalty killer. He's good in the dots, and he's very defensive-minded. That could be a perfect 13th kind of forward for Pete DeBoer, sort of what Ty Dellandrea was last season, right? That could be a nice makeup of a player. Hero, I think, has a little more offensive punch to his game. So where is that dilemma for Pete? What is he going to side on? I would think it's going to be that defensive style, but who knows? Pete doesn't necessarily love that prototypical 4th line checking line. He wants his lines to produce. So, maybe Hero does sneak in there, but certainly something to keep an eye on for the next a week and a half. Can't wait to take in the preseason game on Thursday. That'll sort of be the final dress rehearsal, right? For everybody involved who's going to make a splash, and maybe someone buys himself a roster spot because of the performance on Thursday. You would think on the road in St. Louis, you're going to see a pretty heavy Blues roster in terms of their NHL talent. So I continue to want to see Bichel against the big boys, so to speak, and see how he responds. Thought he looked great on Sunday for the most part. He just continues to do what we've sort of seen from him now over the last month or so. Just real steady, and he can skate. He can work through contact. He's physical. He's angry at some points, which is good. He's got a little Got a little spite in his game, a little roughness. He's sandpaper finish, so to speak, which fires, I think, Stars fans up everywhere, that he has a bit of that. And Dallas will certainly be a more physical team, you would suspect, this year with the additions of Matt Dumba and Labushkin. So a lot of good position battles continuing. It's competitive. Man, the Stars roster is just so full. And at this point, it's sort of like just pick who your gut what does your gut feel and just sort of pick that. It doesn't feel like they can necessarily go wrong with anybody and any of their options at this point in time, which is a good problem to have. That's a good problem to have. And speaking of how that sort of all came to be, there was an article on The Athletic over the summer that I did not catch, and I want to share it with you because it was great, about Jim Nill and sort of the change in their philosophy draft-wise and how they had to make a decision after the 2016-17 season that has, frankly, changed the Stars' trajectory on this upward climb that we've seen over the last few seasons, and we'll get into that in just a moment. Today's episode of Locked On Stars is brought to you by Game Time. We've been talking about Game Time and Game Time Picks, the new feature that makes getting tickets easier for your favorite live events. It filters out all the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. And you can use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. You just download the Game Time app, create an account. Spend time getting the seats you want, not searching for all the crazy seats in the world. Concerts, comedy, theater, sports, you name it, Game Time has it. View your seat before you buy it so you know exactly what you're getting. And Game Time Picks gives you the great options that you need in order to get you inside the building. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONNHL. That's LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. This article I'm referencing was published by Mark Lazarus of The Athletic over the summer, and it's just great stuff. It's about how the Stars had to draft and develop talent to get them to the point that we see now, and how general manager Jim Nill really had to sort of shift the philosophy after the 2016-17 season to really get Dallas back into being a contender annually, like the Stars are starting to see now, because Dallas wasn't your traditional hockey market, right? And it mentions that in this article, where a lot of teams after that 16-17 year would have just blown it up. Jamie Benn and Tyler Seguin have been associated with losing during their era for the most part. Not losing drastically or being a lottery team, but mediocrity, right? That's probably a more fair term. They've been associated with mediocrity here in Dallas. And teams like, look at Chicago and San Jose. As much as we don't want to suspect teams, assume they're tanking, look, that's what's going on. Chicago gets Connor Bedard, San Jose gets Celebrini now. But Jim Nill spoke about how Dallas isn't this traditional market. It's tough to be mediocre and it's tough to tank. We couldn't do that for 2 or 3 years because there's a business side to it, and it was getting to be a real concern. I'm like, boy, are we going to get stuck in the muddy middle here and never get out of it? And that's something we've seen for teams for years on end. They can't get out of that just middle of the pack, right? You're 12 to 16 in the NHL standings. You're not good enough to get the number one pick. And that's how a lot of franchises turn their teams around. And you're also not good enough to really be in the postseason consistently. You're always in and out. And it talks about how they tweak and they tinkered and the meetings leading up to that draft. And they switched their draft focus from size to skill. Size to skill. I think that is the statement in the article that needs to be highlighted. They switched their draft focus from size to skill because, of course, that is where the game is trending. It's all about skill, speed, and finesse. I know you have to be tough, you have to be gritty, you have to be physical, but those are secondary traits in today's NHL, and why I still have some reservations about Matt Dumba and Ilya Lyubushkin. They are very physical, defensive first type players, and I think they're going to do fine here because Dallas has a good system. But the traits that they have do not make them excellent players in today's NHL. And the postseason, it can be a different story. I know it gets mucked up, but still, it's all about speed, size over skill, or skill over size, I should say. And talks about how they hung in there with Rope Hintz. They got a good fortune in the lottery to get Miro and then Ottinger. And they had Robertson, and Nil said it saved the franchise. It gave us new life. And they talk about the Wyatt Johnston draft. It's just kind of a feel when you're an amateur scout. Of course, there wasn't a lot of tape on him coming into the year with the weird COVID situation, and they took a flyer on him. And then in the next round, they get Logan Stankoven. 3 short years. Both are top 6 forwards for Dallas. And those are the type of picks that have really shifted the identity of Dallas and reinvented themselves. It says, other than a lucky break that landed them Heiskanen, the Stars have built up their sensational cadre of young talent with late first and second rounders. It's a far cry from Nil's first 4 drafts, which yielded Hintz and little else. You look at this 2013 draft, Val Nichushkin and Jason Dickinson, they went on to have pretty successful careers. Val, of course, it never materialized here in Dallas, but Nil said, I'm not saying we've got it all figured out. We've made mistakes too, but we self-evaluated and changed our philosophy a little bit. We started to see a shift in the game, and we started to focus a little bit more on the skills side. Our scouts really started to hone in on what our needs were and starting to find extra value. They're digging and finding the right players that we need. And we look at a player like Riley Tufte, who's a big player. That was a Stars pick of a forward coming into University of Minnesota Duluth. He was size at the end of the day. He had some skill and he had some game, of course, but that's a size pick when he's at 6'7". He doesn't jump out to you because of his elite puck handling ability. That's where I'm getting at. So I think that's something that is so key to what we're seeing now here in Dallas. And it's an article that just came across today, and I was like, wow, I did not see this and would love to share it. So I think it's great. And it also touches on how Dallas has been really slow with their young guys. And Jason Robertson has a quote here. It says, you see a lot of young kids coming to the league, and when they're young, the team isn't that great. Here, with the standard we've built with the veterans in the locker room, we keep everyone accountable. And speaking to what I was earlier in today's episode about Mavrik Bourque and Stankoven, the role that they're going to serve here in Dallas, it's a great spot because of those veterans. They know exactly who they need to be. They don't have to carry that young load like a team that had to tank for Connor Bedard. And he is going to be spectacular. And it looks like he's not going to have much of an issue sort of carrying the Blackhawks for years to come, but not everybody's built for that. Not everybody can do that. Not everybody is Connor Bedard. Not everybody is Connor McDavid. So just to finish off with a quote here from Jim Nill, I don't have a silver bullet. I'm not smarter than everybody else. It's really just being considerate of each individual and their unique situation. Where are they at? Are they ready yet? Do they need 2 or 3 years? Everybody's on a different path. And I think that's sort of the questions he's asking right now with Liam Bichsel. Is he ready? Is he ready to play every day in the National Hockey League? Probably not right away. I think he needs 2 or 3 months in the AHL. He needs to play over here in North America for a few months, see where he's at after that, and reevaluate. No reason to throw him in the fire when Dallas doesn't need to, because you don't have to rush him, and you don't want to crush confidence, right? That's really where it is. Don't kill a kid's confidence when it doesn't need to be shattered at this point in time. Even though I'm ready for him to be up, because from what I see, I love it so far. And it's hard not to get excited about what he could potentially be here in Dallas this season and on. So there we go. That'll wrap up a jam-packed episode on a Tuesday here of Locked On Stars. Thank you so much for all the love and support. The numbers and views have been awesome over the past month or so because everybody is ready to go. Hockey right around the corner. 9 days from the season opener. Continue to throw out episodes every day. Thursday. Last preseason game against the Blues. We'll kind of tweak the hinges, see what the roster's like, and then we're off and running for opening night. So buckle up. Great stuff on the horizon. I'll have some previews or prediction episodes out in the next week or so. Still going to do some crossovers, as I mentioned. Got Seth over Locked On Wild. Probably have an episode with Uri. Maybe we'll do a little season prediction as well, and all that good stuff. So please be sure to hit the like and subscribe button, hit the notification bell, drop a comment below as well. Have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you tomorrow. So long, Stars fans.